and welcome back to Unpopular People.
We believe that listening and learning from each other is key for personal development and success.
Today in our interview, Steve Irving from Cairns in Australia.
Steve is a musician and a very good friend from us.
He plays the guitar and he has a great voice. You can find out soon in this interview.
For all information about our project and the show notes to this episode, visit our website on www.unpopularpeople.com.
Besides the show notes, you can find a shop where you can represent yourself with our clothes from Unpopular People, also on www.unpopularpeople.shop.
And don't forget to sign up for our newsletter to stay updated.
Thanks for listening and enjoy the show with Steven.
Yeah, hello Steven. Hello from the Gold Coast to Cairns. We hope you're well, and we are looking forward to this interview with you, this time on Skype for all our listeners. Yeah, hello. Our first question we always ask is, where were you born and how did you grow up?
Hey guys, how are you? It's nice to see you and hear you. I was born in Tasmania, in Burnie in Tasmania, which is a little town to the northwest. And I was there for about a year. And as a baby, as an infant, I came to Sydney and then grew up in Sydney until I was about sort of 17, and then travelled around and worked. And now I'm here in Cairns. But yeah, originally from Tasmania as a baby, born there.
So how was your childhood like? What did your parents do for work? And how was your child? Was you a cheeky boy, or were you just...
Cheeky boy? I don't know about that. To be honest, I think I was quite boring, That's why it's great being on this Unpopular podcast, because, I think that my whole life I've thought of, loved life, but always thought I lived quite a boring life, actually. My father was a cab driver, and, in a good way, But my father was a cab driver since I was a kid up until the point I moved out of home when he retired. And my mum worked for customs, and, she did that. Also started that, I think in the late 80s, she joined customs and did that. So checking people in the airports, checking bags, so this sort of stuff. So, but it's interesting because both my father and my mother, before my mum decided to get a job, she had, earlier on in her life, she had decided actually to get, her story is so interesting as well. Even though she decided to get a job and stay with the job for the last 20 or so years, and that was good stability for her. Yeah, so that's what she did. But earlier on, she was given. She actually won a scholarship to be a marine biologist, and that was something that she couldn't really do because of her parents, actually. And that's something my father told me, like many years later, that was something. So that was a big blow for her, I think, because her parents had come from Poland during the war, and I think that the scarcity mentality and the fear of having someone to look after them and being in a new country was something for them that was something that was a concern for them, a fear for them. So that affected her getting that scholarship to be a scientist or marine biologist, which was really her calling, which is interesting. So she would have had an interesting life. I mean, she still did. Bringing up myself and my two brothers and being with Dad was an interesting life, traveling around and going all sorts of places anyway in Australia and being on the road a lot. They didn't have a conventional life in Australia. It was spent a lot of time on the road, packing up, moving to the next place. Dad getting another job, packing up, moving to the next place. And Dad was an interesting guy because he traveled a lot. It was somewhat interesting. But I think that old world where that sort of thing happened to my mum, learning from things like that and from that being able to especially appreciate like our friendship and the things that we all value together, we have the freedom to explore those things, and it's interesting to look back at a parent, and think, wow, far out, they had an opportunity and, weren't quite able to take that on, for whatever many reasons were affecting them at the time, But Dad was, Dad traveled a lot. He's interesting. That's a whole other Skype thing in itself too, I think.
Cool. After your childhood, how went that further? So what did you do? How did you develop your passion for music?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. When I was about 11 years old, I think, was when I first really started picking up the guitar and started really writing music and playing music and recording music. But before that, my mother and father would play me music when I was a child, when I was in the womb, in my mother's stomach. Well, not her stomach, but actual womb, you know. That's the wrong body part, man. But Steve, easily digestible, good conversation. but yeah, they used to play. Mum used to play jazz, and Dad used to play classical music. So that was their sort of favorite music, and so I sort of grew up with that. And then Dad always used to tell me the story of like when Mum went into labour, and then I was born. A couple of hours later, they were having a party at the place in Tasmania with these, as he recalls, these red-headed Irish nudist people that were all ex-heroin addicts and stuff like that, but they'd gone, you know, found sort of religion, but beautiful people living in the country, you know, and they were listening to music and having a bit of a party that night. And then I came along at about 11 o'clock, and about 1:22 a.m. then I was born, and Dad was, you know, and he drove to the hospital in the old Land Rover that they had, which was, I think he tried to push that Land Rover really as hard as it could go, but the old Land Rover probably didn't make it over 90 kilometres an hour. And they were probably well pissed as well on driving to the hospital that night. But yeah, but really the love of music was always there because both my parents loved music. My dad would always play music. My mum would always play music. So it was always around. But when I was about 11 years old, that's when I first picked up the guitar, really, and then a little tape recorder and started playing and recording. And then it just began from there. That's when it really began, when my dad bought me, my first nylon string guitar.
And what is like your earliest childhood memory from with your brothers? Because like growing up with two more brothers, it's I think it's quite challenging. I have two brothers as well, and I know how it is. So how was your experience?
Yeah, I think you know, it was an interesting one because it was short-lived. Because both my brothers are 10 years older than me. You know, they had also left by the time I was about 8 years old. By the time they were 18. So it was interesting but short-lived. When I was very young, the first few memories I remember, really, the first few memories are really, you know, either me chasing them or them chasing me, I think, you know. Some involves somebody chasing somebody, you know, and trying to get involved, I think, in sometimes what they were doing. But also we had mutual friends that had different age brothers. So some age kids were the same age as me, and then the older guys were the same age as my brothers. So it was actually kind of cool. And when I was really younger, we had a close Lebanese family that were good friends of ours, and because we lived in Bankstown at that time before I moved to Bondi, and the western suburbs of Sydney and Bankstown is quite it's very multicultural, you know. And it's great for that, you know, like next door neighbours were Greek, next door neighbours were Vietnamese, and then the other neighbours were, they might have been maybe more Greeks. Yeah, it's just mixed, just everybody there, you know, and my grandparents were Polish, so it was just awesome, you know. It's hard to think back sometimes. You think, oh yeah, who were they again? But no. And it was great. So we grew up playing really with, I suppose, like similar people, like-minded and similar people, quite like just getting out there and riding our bikes and doing stuff, normal stuff that kids do, I suppose, in Bankstown. But it changed quickly because when my parents separated when I was 6 years old, we moved to the eastern suburbs of Sydney. So we moved to around like the Vaucluse area, and then was there for about a year. And then a couple of years later, we moved to around the North Bondi, Dover Heights area. So it was interesting going from the western suburbs of Sydney to the east, because the east is completely different, you know. But again, very multicultural around the Bondi area. Lots of New Zealanders, lots of people from all walks of life, because a lot of the diplomats and a lot of the consulate people live up in that area. So, and you have a massive population of South African Jews and Jews in general. That's where your synagogues and stuff like that, where that wasn't so much in the western suburbs. The western suburbs was a different demographic. So it was just, another really multicultural space, actually, growing up in school with people from the Ukraine, Yugoslavia, Croatia, Korea, China, Japan. I mean, really, and Lebanese again. I mean, it was just a whole different, and a lot of islanders as well, and it was great. We moved, the main move, I think, going from the western suburbs of Sydney to the eastern suburbs was massive difference because, being 6 years old when I moved from that area to sort of the North Bondi area, the eastern suburbs, was totally different culture, completely different. It was interesting to go to from, a primary school where, and it's only young too. We're only talking first grade as well, so it's only a couple of years really in Bankstown, but still enough to really understand what it is and to be in it and to have enough experiences in it that were, that were interesting in themselves. So, your first experiences of kids saying something stupid to you or bullying you or something, you think, what the fuck is going on? Like, what is this? It's really interesting, and to have that cross section experience between out of, I suppose, a more what you would call working class suburbs, which is definitely what they are, and the eastern suburbs, which is full of, we're talking diplomats and things like that, and doctors and all this sort of. There's working class there. And then in the 90s, the eastern suburbs around there was, especially Bondi, was nothing like it is now. Bondi was almost a rough place, really. You know what I mean? It was a very, very local, small place. It wasn't populated like it is today. Completely different, polar opposite actually of what it is today and what it's portrayed as, and all the sort of footage that you see of it. Completely opposite. But what it was like was interesting because the prejudice was an interesting thing. I grew up with a father who traveled a lot, was very accepting and very understanding of how life is, as a traveler. And you guys, I know, understand that as well, being international sort of travelers and also from a different country as well. You guys, have different customs, different understanding of the world. Also in Germany, you're also surrounded by a lot of other countries. Here, it's just Australia pretty much, And that was interesting because growing up in such a multicultural area, all of a sudden, yes, the eastern suburbs was multicultural, but it was like multicultural with like, I don't know, a bit more prejudice in a way. It was weird, like people gave a shit about what sort of car you had, whereas that didn't really happen before. It wasn't really on the radar. People didn't really say, point out that you've got whatever car you've got, which actually brings me to an interesting experience when we had a friend that was looking after a Rolls Royce for his friend who was a doctor or something. And so one day Dad said, fuck it, we'll take him to school in the Rolls Royce. So one day they got the Rolls Royce from his friend's place and they dropped me off in the Rolls Royce at this little primary school in Vaucluse, in Vaucluse up there near Watson's Bay. It's just up near the Gap in Sydney, up near on the coast there. That was pretty funny. But and then one day my brother decides, my older brother Henry, he decides to drop me off at school because of this sort of like rich school sort of thing. It was interesting, but he was a different perspective. He had an old Valiant Charger, an orange Valiant Charger, which is like a muscle car from the 70s sports car sort of thing. And I think he also gave me a Mohawk before I went to school that day as well. So one day I got dropped off in this was really nice 70s sort of, vehicle, but with a Mohawk. So I was wondering that day actually why people were giving me all these funny looks. So I think I realized once I got home, because I didn't actually have a look in the mirror before he sent me to school. So that was,
okay.
It was pretty lonely, actually, to be honest. If I was one word to sum it up would be lonely, because the camaraderie or the sort of rough and tumble, hey, let's go and play, wasn't there. It was, okay, kids, we finish school, parents come and pick them up, they go home, and then they go to their tennis lesson, their whatever lesson, blah, 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 homework, whatever it is, and everything was very sort of compartmentalized in a way, because the people had money and the high-flying jobs. The attitude was very different. It was like school, home, do this, bang, bang, bang. Whereas for us, it was school and home, but it was also like playing and having fun and laughing together and eating together and doing this thing and which, it was, So initially it was, pretty lonely actually in the eastern suburbs, not really having people that were, I suppose, easy to get along with or easy to mix with, really weird. Just this, I suppose the people, kids mirror their parents a lot, I suppose, and I suppose the group or niche thing, when you get into a place like that, everyone's got their, I'm blonde or I'm this or I'm that, and so that's your little thing, your little clique, and I think that's what my dad found as well. It was the same thing when he came to Melbourne. He was born in Fiji and grew up in Fiji until he was about 15, and he said coming to Melbourne in the 50s was like, it was really difficult. So he went actually horse riding and went jackarooing out in the desert and stuff, because when he was 16, because it was, even for him, the conservative Australia back then was...
What is jackarooing?
Jackarooing is it's an Australian term where people sort of generally ride horseback and they muster cattle, and they help muster cattle on big properties out in the outback, and things like this, you know. So yeah, mustering cattle and maintaining the properties and stuff out in the outback. And because my father had already been riding a horse since he was little, for him that was like second nature. Yeah, he was a good horseman, which is something I wanted to learn from him, but I never got a chance to. Yeah.
So was this the reason why you put so much effort in the music, so that you, focused on music mainly instead of playing with other kids? I mean,
loneliness.
Yeah, I mean the loneliness.
Yeah, I think, yeah, definitely. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I never thought about that. That's a good question. I never look at myself like that. I just, I never think of those aspects. But yeah, I think so. I think only having a select group of friends, close friends, was great. I think, because I was always self-satisfied. I'd always been sort of happy just doing my own thing, and as a kid, whether it was building a pigeon trap or asking granddad to build a bow and arrow or something, or helping do something, or eating fruit in the backyard. I know I was always sort of like dreaming and doing things myself, and that didn't change. I think in primary school, I was still dreaming and looking out the window, and that didn't make too many people very happy. I think I remember reading my report card, and it said, Stephen's like, I don't know, daydreaming. It actually said the word daydreaming. And I'm quite proud of that. They can all,
you were meditating in class, that's what it was.
I was exactly meditating, Now they consider that in the new school of bringing up kids, it's like a valuable thing. Back then they just looked at you and thought, oh, you're just a stupid little boy. Look at you, not paying attention. Look at you, But no, I mean, to some degree. But yeah, I think it definitely influenced playing music for sure. I found something that had this infinite potential. It had this infinite road. I did with music. It was like, and it still is today with music. I don't see an end to it. There's no like, oh, you get here and then that's it. It never feels like that. I think, you definitely. And spending hours and hours. Even Dad used to say, he goes, you practice 8 hours a day, and until I look back, I go, shit, yeah. And even when I was working in Sydney, when I lived there as an adult, a young adult, Jesus, and I wouldn't call it adult, far out, young 20s. But even then, usually what I do is either listen to music or play music in all my time off, usually all day, actually. Some days I remember, 4, 5, 6 hours, no problem, to sit down and practice music.
And did you moved from Tasmania to Sydney, east and west, and then you moved. Now you live in Cairns. You lived in different places throughout your life. So, what was usually the reason why you moved? I mean, you said your parents split up when you were 6. Did you live with your dad the whole time, or did you live with your mom the whole time? And so, did you move because of jobs, or what was the reason actually why you moved to those places?
Yeah. So when I was 6, I lived with my father primarily, and then on the weekends normally I'd go up and see my mum. So we'd catch the train to go and see my mum. She lived on the Central Coast at that time, which is about 2 hours north of Sydney, 2.5 hours north of Sydney. So I'd catch the train on a Friday, and then early Monday morning about 3 a.m. because she worked at the airport. I'd get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and then get ready, and then we'd catch the train into Sydney. And then Dad would pick me up from Central Station on the Monday, and we'd go and get a bacon and egg roll from this place called Zolly's, and it was on, I think it's called Edgecliff Road. I can't remember, but it's the road that leads from Rose Bay, and it goes up towards Rushcutters Bay, I think, and it leads up and it goes up into the city. And on the way back from Central Station, because my dad would be driving the cab, so he'd come and pick me up in the cab, and he'd probably just be partway through his shift, because he'd start at 3 a.m. I'd either start at 3 or finish at 3 a.m. So he'd pick me up in the cab. We'd go and get this bacon and egg roll with barbecue sauce and a hot chocolate. And then he'd drop me off to school, because I'd already be dressed in the school clothes, I think, or maybe, I can't remember. But yeah, so that was awesome. Monday morning was always awesome. And it was just these little things that Dad did like that. These little things like getting this bacon and egg roll and having this hot chocolate was awesome. It's funny, you ask me these questions, and what I think about the most is the bacon and egg roll and the hot chocolate. Yeah. But what other part was the question? To see Mum. So I saw Mum on the holidays as well. That's right, yeah. So I'd go up, and that was interesting, because on the holidays, when I saw my mum, her partner actually worked on a horse farm. So during the holidays, I was lucky enough to be able to actually be around horses and ride motorbikes on a farm and work around machinery and stuff like that, like diggers and things like this and backhoes on this horse farm, Glenworth Valley up in Pete's Ridge when I was a kid. And it was great because I got to be around this awesome, cool stuff like riding farm bikes, these Yamaha 200 farm bikes, and doing practical things, handling machinery and learning different things. As I got older, it was a great experience to be able to have all that practical stuff that actually I couldn't get in the city. And this was a big thing for me. This was a big blessing because in the city you can't do that. There's no access to this sort of thing unless you work on a construction site as a kid. And to have those wide open spaces and to ride horses at the Christmas party, or to have an opportunity to drive trucks, or doing work, or riding on the front of a motorbike trying to get up a steep hill up to the next road, and having all these good hands-on experiences for life. So actually for me it was really valuable, and it was really awesome time having that balance of the both worlds, having the urban sort of city world and being able to experience and live. And more importantly, I think really, and I think it's what my dad really taught me as well, and what both parents really, really taught me by all the things that they sort of intended. But I think for Dad, because his experience was traveling in people, that's why he was a cab driver. He was great with people, and being self-employed was great for him. And having done so many jobs before and traveled and been on his own 2 feet and sort of really more or less just exploring the world, really. Being able to learn people. This is the thing, because people is everything. If you can't interact with people, it's a hard life out there. If you can't read people, you can't tell whether someone's telling the truth. It's a hard world, and there was a lot of naivety in me still in my early years, which got weeded out of me by the time I was about 20, even up till about, I'd say probably about 27 still. That's 27 or 30. But it was good to have that experience of understanding people, both outside of the city and in the city. That was a big thing.
Was it hard for you that your parents split up? Did you feel very sad in this time and when you grow up? So how did you handle it? As a child, I think it's quite challenging when the parents split up, or Yeah,
I think it can be very challenging. But it seems like it's like my parents sort of got on with everything so well that it didn't really feel like a problem, which is quite interesting. Like I don't actually recall ever having any issue about it, or any sort of emotional thing about it. But when I look at the situation and I feel it and I remember certain memories of seeing both of my parents, what I do really remember is feeling empathetic to their situations, like my father was working a lot and trying to do his best. My mother was working a lot and trying to do their best. And you feel this, this is what you feel the struggle, because when you're together, it's like you have resources and you have time and you have strength to help each other, and you don't have to do everything yourself. Some person can do this while you're doing that. And it's, and so what I felt was just, like when Dad would buy something, for instance, or didn't have enough money to buy something, and we didn't really have a lot of money. I mean, driving a cab, just the hours that he worked, it wasn't like a lucrative business, It wasn't like he was earning 2,000 a week or 1,000 a week. It wasn't like that. It was very like just enough, really. But it was okay. Like we had everything we needed. Like we had a TV, we had this or that or whatever, or Mum bought my computer. So we had different things, but it wasn't like, over the top, like having enough for everything. But this thing about feeling the empathy for the parent, like when my dad used to buy something, whether it was food or something, like I used to value it, I just had this sense of like, wow, I'm so grateful for this. Like, awesome. Wow. Because Dad put love and care into what he did, whether it was making a meal or buying food from the shops. He always made sure there was enough of the things that were important. Like he always made sure we had enough water pressure in the flat that we rented. He always made sure that we had enough fruit. He always made sure that we had enough just enough of everything, like gas hot water. So we didn't have to worry about the hot shower running out. So you could have a shower for as long as you want. These little things made a huge difference in feeling at home and feeling safe and feeling like you had a sanctuary, somewhere where you could rest, recuperate. His favorite saying was always peace and tranquility. He just always used to repeat, that when he was sitting back listening to classical music or on his time off, he just peace and tranquility, and just enjoying that peace. And from someone who traveled for so long in his life, like really, he probably traveled since he was 16 when he did the horse riding and stuff. And then he met my mum when he was probably about 34. So even though that's not a huge, didn't travel till he was like 60 or 50. But the thing is that even when he was with mum, they were always on the road, so it was like this non-stop thing. And I think that wears you down somewhat, and there are certain appreciations for having a simple thing like your home and how to make your home a home. What makes a home a home? What the simple needs that you have that really make everything okay, and really knowing what those simple things are. Because once you've got that whole survival thing sorted, that whole, I've got hot water, I've got a roof over my head, I've got enough food, once you've really got those things sorted, I've got my close friends, nothing else matters. Anything else you can bounce off, you can throw it away, you can do this, do that, go here, go there. But if you understand what those fundamental things are, and that's what I really learned from Dad, I think that was what really made the whole split up from both of them, because they were really, to be honest, like so mature about it. Dad had me when he was 47, so by the time he was born in 1937, so when he grew up, World War II was on, and it's sort of the first few years of his life was World War II. So even from my father, it was like there was lots of maturity from my mother and my father. It was just they just got on with it and dealt with it, And man, I look at that and I think, wow, good on you. You know what I mean? Really, like they did the best, and it's massive because when I look around, it's not that common. It's not that common, And I think I'm lucky that my parents, I suppose, my mum was 13 years younger than my dad. But honestly, I'm super grateful for that. It wasn't like a transition that was like painful and it's complaining and whinging and blah, blah, and this, and I'll have this. And none of that. All that mattered was the kids. All that matters was this is what we're going to do is just look after the best we can. And okay, let's go.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to meet your dad back in 2016 when I lived in Cairns with you at your house for some time. And
yeah, that was
so
great.
Yeah, he passed away some time ago. I think this year, right?
Last year, June 27th last year.
Okay,
yeah. But it goes so quick. I don't blame you, though.
How is it for you now? I mean, you talk a lot about your dad, and I think he was a big influence in your whole life. And I'm very lucky to have my dad still in my life, and I couldn't imagine how it will be to live. They're not having him around anymore because he's a big influence in my life as well. So how is it for you? Not having your dad anymore, and what advice can you give others, like coping with, like the sadness after like the parents die?
Yeah, good question. All these good questions, Ben. Yeah, it's what's the first question again?
So it's just like if you have any advice for people that lose their parents or their dad in any age, if you have any advice to them how to cope with the sadness you feel losing someone very close to you.
I think the best bit of advice that we could give myself, I suppose, really, is that, and in turn anyone else, is that it's just a process, and you really have to, like with a lot of things in life, you really have to go with it. You have to go with where it takes you, and like other people used to say to me, before Dad died and also after, that it'll hit you at the strangest times, and it's interesting the different people that have said different things like this to me. And a good friend of my father's and myself was a good friend of ours, Peter, which I think you remember.
Yeah, I remember Peter. I recorded his violin.
Yeah, that's right. And, he said that to me one day. He said, it'll just hit you at the strangest times, but it's okay. And he used to say to me, it's just, when that happens, it's just them. It's just them loving you. It's just them. And maybe just them communicating with you or something, And I think you definitely have to, be okay with where it takes you. I think that's the biggest thing, I mean, obviously not suicide or something like this. I don't mean this, but it's going to take you, some days you feel flat. I think the energy levels for me was the biggest thing. Some days you just feel very solemn, there'd be something that happens. You just wake up, one day, and it's just like, today is just one of those days, and that's okay, because it leads you to other places. And also as an artist, I think that's something that Dad really understood. And even the death process, and even the process of losing someone, looking at it in a positive light, and looking at what it can bring in terms of more richness into your life, is a really good way of looking at it. Because when someone passes, really you forget about all the crap, But for me and my father, we were great friends, so there's very little of any of that, really. But for a lot of people, there's the questions, about this or that or whatever, whether how they treated them, or, they had an argument or something like this, But, looking at their passing and understanding that they wanted the best for you, I think this is the essence that really came out of it, was that knowing how much this person really loved and how much this person really gave to me, and really spurred me on and supported me in all the things that I love to do in life, and really understood me. That understanding is really super important, I think, And I think the biggest thing is that when they passed, is to realize that it doesn't have to be. It's not a distancing of your relationship with the person. I think it's actually quite opposite. The relationship is actually gets stronger and stronger, because in hindsight, and without them, especially without them being elderly and being around in pain and in suffering, because this pain and this suffering in the moment takes away from the true nature of their vibrancy and who they really are as a soul, who they really are as our age. What were they, because my dad used to always say to me, he goes, I feel 20 in my head, I feel 25, but my body, and I think that's the biggest thing, is that it's hard to grasp when it happens, but it's something, and that's what I mean as go with it, because the richness of their experience in your life, it just gets richer if you give focus and attention to your relationship with them and keep them in your life. There's no need to actually get rid of them. I think this is the thing. A lot of people in Western society, we try to push everything to the outside, we get rid of it. Oh, it's finished, throw it away. Or the person's dead, okay, go, get rid of it, back to work, which is bullshit. I think, to me, this attitude is ridiculous. When in the Western society, we're so eager just to get back to work and go and fuck up some more shit, whether it's the earth, whether it's the fucking buy some more shit or whatever it is. There's this thing, man, that people do, and it's just like, can't wait to get back to work to go and live more unconscious shit. Yeah, let's go, this crap. And even death, this opportunity to stop, it's an opportunity to go, at least I have an excuse now to stop and to think about what I'm doing in my life. Is all the things that I'm doing in my life awesome? Are they really what I want? And I think there's two things. Yeah, it's definitely that a relationship will grow, and to go with the ups and the downs. Don't force it. Like when you're trying to heal, same thing as physical. If it's a day and your body has no energy, your body's saying, hey man, I can't do this today. Okay, today no. We'll go do something else. We'll go for a walk, have a coffee, do something else. Don't push. No need. There's a reason in it. Your body has an intelligence. Listen to it. And the same thing with the death thing. It's like, listen to it, go with it, have time to reflect, have time to connect with them, because unless it's a sudden death, but even then if it's a sudden death, you're still missing out on knowing that person. So give time for the grief, give time to use that time to know that person better, and hold them closer, and really in essence feel their love and feel your own love, so you can go out and then into your own life and give that back to yourself and to others. Because there comes a time when like it's been 6 months for me since I've had now just my own place this year, and just having a roof over my head. Instead of, I was with Dad before, and then he passed away, so I moved out of the house that we were renting together, and now I'm in a flat. And just to have that time, it's in 6 months, just to stop and to not force myself to work, because for me, I love working with my hands, I love making music, so it was hard to even acknowledge my body telling me, actually, hey, no, don't go and work, don't go and do this stuff, and keep being busy. Just stay, relax, have time to go through this process. And this 6 months has been really, really important and really valuable. And it's been a good thing, because now I feel much more okay, for the lack of a better word, but I feel much more at peace, with everything, just in the last 6 months.
So, and when you have these moments of sadness, sometimes you can't see when they come, because these are emotions. They just come. How do you deal with them? So, do you have a tool for yourself that you use to come back into your mindset?
Yeah. One thing that I do use often when whether it's for grief or whether it's just for being out in the day and all of a sudden you have something come over you, like anxiety or anger or frustration, especially if you've been out and you're busy during the day, the good question is, who does it belong to? Is this really mine? Is this emotion I'm feeling really mine? And that's a very good starting point, I find, for myself, because it allows me to recognize that, am I just feeling the sadness of, in this case, it can be a multitude of emotions, but we'll talk about sadness first. If I'm sitting down or I'm at home or I'm out and I feel sadness and I look at it, and because I question it and I go straight away, what is that? Regardless, you can ask, who does it belong to or what is it? But I look at it as a question, and I try to, as much as I can, look at anything that comes into my life with a question and go, oh, what is this? Or, oh, that's interesting. And sort of like, I try not to judge things too much. As in, we'll take the sadness as an emotion for example, if I'm doing something at home or outside of home and then I feel the feeling of sadness come over me, instead of being caught up in the emotion itself, the biggest tool that I use is really the tool of questioning it or not identifying with it, like getting into the habit of not identifying with everything that I feel as my own. And that in itself is probably the biggest tool that has helped me so much with everything in life, because once you learn not to personalize everything, it helps immensely, because not everything is just not only is it not necessarily just you who feels that or just it is your feeling. It could be that someone else is feeling this and you're sitting next to them and you feel their sadness. This is very, very true and possible. But the other thing is that it just allows you to be more aware of what they are, and also not get caught up in the sadness or the emotion. Because if we don't look at it and go, okay, I'm sad. Okay, that's okay. I'm sad. Okay. And then be able to either ask, who does it belong to, or what is it? If it's what is it, it's like you'll have an awareness about that. You'll have an internal recognizing, oh, cool, Dad, I'm thinking of Dad. Or you get the feeling, oh, this is my father or whatever. And so you can sit with it then, and you can interpret that however you wish to interpret it, or however it comes through to you. And that's probably the biggest tool that's so helpful, really, is this non-personalization of everything. Because if you don't ask it, what is it or who does it belong to, and sit with it as a thing that it is, and you automatically just assume that I am sad, I am anxious, I am angry, that it has no meaning. The emotion brings you no meaning, even though it comes with a meaning. It could be, if you believe in it, it could be your father's contacting you or he's around you. If you don't believe in that, it could be that somebody else who's living is feeling angry or feeling sad. It's not necessarily so that it's like, just because you feel something, it belongs to you, that it's you. Not at all. Like, we're all empathetic. We all feel things. Animals feel things. It's the thing that's all. It displays itself all around us. How we live. And yeah, the worst thing is, I think, if we get caught up in the emotion itself, that's when it leads to this uncontrollable spiral of more of whatever that is. If you feel sad or angry and you don't ask the questions of it, and you just assume that you're angry, it doesn't have there's no information that comes, or no awareness that comes with it. So if you don't ask, what is this, then you're just going to feel angry and then walk around being, I'm angry, I'm sad. And it just, that sort of thing, I think it leads to a lot of suffering for a lot of people, because so many people I've met, I've shared this tool with, which I've learned, from other people in the past. And having done a lot of sort of emotional release therapies and healing work and things with people, coaching and helping people to try and overcome similar things. If you don't ask it, what is this thing I'm experiencing, and be willing to sort of sit with it, then you're sort of missing the awareness or the information that comes with it. And in effect, then you just be sad, for lack of a better description, sad for no reason or angry for no reason, and just staying with the emotion rather than being able to understand why it's there and understand, I'm angry because I didn't go to my friend's birthday party, or I'm frustrated because of blah, blah, you know, and then realize. And then as soon as you realize what it is, because you've had the awareness, then it can begin to dissipate. It can begin to go away, because it's really just, in essence, an awareness trying to tell you something, whether it's sadness or anything. I suppose the best question is, I ask myself, is what's the awareness that I'm getting? And I sit with it. And then sometimes I just know straight up, you know, without even asking a question, you know, you're like, I'm sad because of my dad or whatever. And you just sit there. And sometimes I just sit there and I'll be totally fine with it and just be like, cool. And just sit with it and not be in resistance to it. I think that's the second thing. Don't push it away. Just sit down and be sad. Enjoy it. Have a cup of tea, have a drink, whatever. Just sit down. You know, just remember them, whatever it is. Just don't fight it. The more you fight it, the worse the pain will get.
So some years ago, when you were younger, you joined the Navy. How did you handle the stress and emotions in this time? Because now it seems like you really have like lots of tools to, you know, when you're sad or when your emotions overcome you, you can handle the situations. But how was it back then when you were younger and in the Navy? Because there are things you can't control. How did you handle it?
Yeah, man, great question. That's, you know, it was totally the opposite. It was to get here where I am now. For me, it was totally the opposite then. You know, I didn't understand why we do this, why we do that, why is that person doing that, why did that person rip me off, why did that person steal my jacket for, why would you do that? Why, this shit never made sense. And I was like 17 when I joined, so, you know, I spent a little bit of time outside of school, outside of high school when I left high school, before when I joined the Navy, and that's an interesting story in itself, actually. Leaving home. That's a funny story about.
Yeah, tell it.
Come back. Okay, yeah, sure. Well, this is when I said before about like when you remember people when they pass. You know, it's like, you know, whether they had a great relationship or whether there was things that you were like really pissed off about the person for doing. You know, with that it was interesting because I always looked at it, leaving home as a good thing, but there was part of me that was, or the way that I left home was a good thing. When I left home, Dad he just rang up and said, you know, okay, I'm gonna stop working now, so we need to leave home. And so I got some friends from school, or a friend of mine from school, and then we helped to move all the furniture and stuff from the house, because Dad had gone away and actually had gone with his new partner, and he was deciding, I'm going to retire, I'm too tired now to work. And fair enough, because he'd been working for ages. So anyway, he called me up, and this is one of those things that you could resent someone for, you know. But for me, I always took it as an endearing thing, like, oh yeah, way to start life, you know. So Dad rang up one day and he said, look, I'm not coming back. We're going to have to move out. Or you're going to have to move out, you know. So I got a friend from school one day, and we took all the furniture from the house, all the desks and blankets and tables and computer and everything. And I put it downstairs of the flats where I was staying at. And then I walked away with 5 bags and my guitar amplifier. And that was, I think it was even 2 guitars I had, 3. And, man, so I had all this crap with me, man. I had this shit. I had my 5 bags. I had my guitar amplifier, which was like this Laney VC30, 2 10-inch speaker, tube amp. And it was awesome. And, anyway, I walked away from the house with that. I went to the laundromat downstairs, down at the end of the street, because that's really all I had access to at that point. I didn't even have the money, I don't think, to call anyone. And I called from the laundromat, I called some friends, and they said, yeah, come and stay with us. So I caught the bus, caught the train, and then I went and stayed with them. And I went and worked with them for a bit before joining the Navy, doing some labouring work in Sydney. And it was lucky that I had that opportunity, because I was literally out of my ass. Dad just rang up and said, look, I'm not going to work anymore. And so this was the first moment of like, oh, there's no control. There's like shit's just happened to you, like fuck, you know. But I think it was a really good lesson to have to go. Someone ring up and say, look, I'm not coming back home. You're going to have to move out, because you know I can't work anymore. I mean, because Dad had me when he was 47, so by this time he was already, you know, late 50s or 60 or something. Anyway, so I left school, left school and left home with just work, carrying all these bags. And so, yeah, in the Navy, like it was sort of like a logical step, I suppose. My dad really wanted me to join the Navy, so that's what I did. There was an interesting story, you know, leading up to that as well. But anyway, in answer to your question, without sidetracking,
well, that's good. Like, tell us the story. If it's an interesting story how you joined the Navy, we want to hear it.
Well, it's just interesting because, like, I mean, the question of like, how did I go in the Navy? Because a lot of things are out of your control and this sort of thing. The answer to that is shithouse. It was fucked. For me as a young person, it was really hard. But what's more interesting is leading up to it, because I really love photography and music. And for me, that I had done a job helping for just for work experience, helping one of the substitute teachers who was a photographer. And I thought, this is awesome. And I love music. And so for me, having a camera and taking photos of people in street scenes and things like this was really important to me. And my dad was the one that really wanted me to join the Navy. And even though it was great in many ways, it was interesting because it was a bit of a conflict as well. And I think that's what, when he asked me, like, how was it? Yeah, it was difficult as a young teenager and also like a young 20-year-old to really be in that environment and sort of be free thinking and playing music and stuff, and sort of, it's a different culture. That's really the word that comes up. It's a different culture. I mean, just before I joined the Navy, I had an opportunity through some friends that I met to live with a photographer in Bondi. And this guy had a vacant room. He just had a vacant room in his house. It just come vacant, I think, in his unit in Sydney. And turns out when I was having a look through his photos, he took photos of Jeff Buckley, Midnight Oil, which is an Australian band, and a whole bunch of other artists. And he turns out he was one of the best photographers in Australia. And he actually said, or his friend said to me, she was another photographer, she asked me, do you want to move in here? And I really wanted to. And I actually rang my mum on the bus and I said, Mum, can you help me with the money for the bond for this place? And what had happened was my middle brother had just gotten addicted to heroin at that time, I think. His girlfriend hung herself. She hung herself at our grandparents' place, which is where we moved away from Bankstown. And she had postnatal depression. And so she had just had a baby, and not long after that, she hung herself at my grandparents' place. And that's part of the reason why he got involved with drugs, but also part of the reason why he stayed on the drugs as well. And now he's doing great now. He's doing fantastically now. But yeah, many years of struggle for him in that situation to try and deal with that sort of stuff and to try and face, I suppose, the emotion, to be willing to feel was a big journey for him. But he's doing great now, thank God. And thanks to him, for making the choice. But because he was struggling at the time and asking my mum for money, my mum actually said to me, no, I can't lend you any money for that. And for me, it was a pivotal point, because to move in with one of Australia's best photographers, as someone who was starting out in photography, someone who more or less really could have had a mentorship with someone who was really a really nice guy, and just said, hey, I've got a room in my house, do you want to stay there? It was like ridiculous, but like a ridiculous opportunity. But coming back to the thing about the Navy, the reason why I explain that is because it really leading up to the Navy really leads into that question of how did you handle it? And it was like that conflict again, that same thing that made it hard to deal with all the interpersonal relationships in the Navy, work relationships, romantic, whatever it may be, as a young person, that same thing that made it difficult. And it's the same thing that I consequently learned from all the living that either in both places and with my parents' experience and living with them and all that they had imparted and who they were and all their stuff. The same thing that made it hard in the Navy was also the same thing that made me not fight for that opportunity as well, that I really wanted. It was to be that photographer, because it's something that I felt at home in doing. It's something I really felt like, actually, this is something that is for me. It's something I love. It's something that I really just second. When you find something, it's just second nature. You pick up a guitar and you're like, yeah, I'm not having a choice. I do this thing. With music and photography, it was like that was my thing. That was the thing. Some people, they go play football, they fucking love it. Awesome, great. Some people go and, I don't know, build houses, which I love building as well. I love working my hands. But yeah, some people just, that's their thing. They're a race car driver or whatever. And for me, it was that. It was just like seeing the world through this lens, but also communicating with people, because part of that, taking photographs of people and places, was learning about the place and being with the people and finding the people interesting and admiring, wow, these people with these different life choices, and oh, how interesting. Like, and also capturing that moment in time that was a moment of realness, this candid shot of this time and place and space where you're like, wow, what a moment. Like, that's awesome. Whether it's, peaceful or exciting or whatever it is, or just, contemplation on someone's face, or a conversation that people are happening. That got me, capturing that life scene, because I love being in life. I love being out there in life, experiencing it. And so taking photos of life, of the experience of life, meant a lot to me. And I tried to do that a little bit in the Navy, but I think what happened was, in answer to your question again, how did I handle it? It was the difficulty of trying to maintain the things that I loved with being in a place where the culture was so void of passion, sensitivity, tenderness, experience, like sensuality, appreciation, gratitude. Those things hardly exist in the military at all. Well, especially in the Navy. It's like, or at least from my perspective, I mean, you meet some great people, but it really, as I said before, it was like my father really wanted me to join the Navy. His idea was like, if you do that, it'll teach you things I can't teach you, and it did. There's many things in there that are super handy, but to know great skills and things, but just being able to function, maybe perhaps more so than normal people in society. And the example I give is like, being able to get up at all hours and be okay with it and go and do whatever job you've got to do. I like that part of the training. I like that part of the job where you push yourself further. I think it's like an amazing personal development platform that's terribly over-resourced and underused by the people that are in there. And it's really a few people that are in the positions of supervisor at all different levels that are too afraid or simply don't know how to utilize the resources and think, what's the best I can do in this situation? How can I look after these guys that are working so hard? Or, because there's long times when you're working hard, but there's also a lot of times when there's not a lot going on, but you're sort of working, and it's like, how do you utilize people's time the best? And they don't do that, and that made it hard for me. When you ask the question, what was it like? How did you handle it? It was like the boredom coupled with the ignorance of the people that are in positions of power, and coming to really understand that in its truth. And my father spoke about it. I mean, he was in the army when he was younger. He did regular army and national service. But he got out of the regular army very quick because it was said it was very different to national service. It wasn't as productive. He felt like the people were very lazy. It was, so he got out. He did his own discharge thing and got out at request. And I think, how did I handle it? Again, it was the insecurity as a young person and your lack of self-esteem, lack of self-confidence is a big hole for a lot of people. Yeah, because you have to understand yourself to understand your limits or your boundaries or your potential non-limits or non-boundaries. You have to really know yourself. And that journey for me really began as soon as I left home, but it was a long time to really understand the length and breadth of, who am I? What am I capable of? What am I, just a piece of shit? Or do I know how to do stuff? Am I a good musician? Am I shit? What am I? Am I gay? Am I straight? What am I? Am I a fucking alien? And this is life, this is fucking life. But the difference is all the artists and all the people that are living out there, living life every day, that don't have government money handed to them, that don't have a work schedule handed to them, so they don't have to think, are much more in touch with that. People who self-work, self-motivated, I'm going here, I'm doing that, this is what I love. I used to always look at a couple of my friends when I was growing up and think, fuck, man, you just got your boundaries. You're like, I don't like that, I'm not doing that or whatever. I'm like, fucking shit. It just, to me, it was like, I'm like, even though now it's no problem, like all of those things now is no problem. Now I'm, just fantastic, like inside of myself in terms of strength and clarity. Like, we're talking, this is years ago, but it is such an important subject, though, because this is where so many people are not failing, but so many people are let down, by people, especially like take the Navy as a organization, and a personal development platform. they give you a big advertisement, and they tell you, you're going to do this and that and that. And it's true, right? It's true. You can do all that. But if you don't know how to, it's a sort of place where it has a culture. It's a bit like football. It has its own culture. It's a bit like sport. It has its own culture, its own little thing, And if you're not in with the culture, the thing, and you don't like the culture of it, which is sometimes very crude and very, in reality, ignorant and crude. I mean, I'm not going to lie about it. I mean, this some of the things I've seen and some of the things that, it's oh man, far out. It's like, but that's just the truth of it, man. Yeah, and it's if you don't know how to conduct yourself, how to live properly, and you haven't learned that yet, it can be a very damaging place for a lot of people. And this is actually what happens, whether it's sports or whether it's any culture, whether it's Navy, it doesn't matter. It's like there are places and spaces where, drug culture, underworld culture, where people go where they're vulnerable because they don't have a sense of self and a sense of confidence, a sense of, definitely, a sense of self and a sense of this is me, this is what I like, it's what I don't like. Very easily you can get led. And even as a male growing up in this country, first world country, quote unquote, being involved with, a government organization, and witnessing the culture and experiencing the culture there, like, of this place. And in particular, I'm not passing blame. I'm not saying like, the Navy's bad or this people bad. It's not like that. It's like the culture exists, right? And unless you change it, it's doing the same thing. But it's not one person that's at fault. It's not like the Navy. Like the Navy is the problem of all my problems. But for sure, there are things that they don't take responsibility for. And I have to say that because for many years, people ask me about it, and I have to be honest, because for many years, my self-confidence was destroyed because of a culture I was involved in that saw a young person. And now as an adult, I know that. Yeah, it's not like an idea. It's not a fantasy. As an adult person now, that what are things that I've learned and how I've self-developed and the things that I've overcome, I can look at that now and go, okay, I can see how you work as an organization. I can see as a culture. I can see through and look at everything that's going on and be able to look at that and understand. And what it really is that the fact that they see young people, and what happened to me personally, those young people, we'll get you in, but the mentorship, the self-development, the people are not trained to recognize when people are in need of whatever they might be in need in, whenever they're suffering or what they might need, or also the requirements of people. Just they're not trained to look at that and go, okay, because the culture overtakes the intelligence. It's easy just to I don't know. I don't know if it's easy just to do anything else. I think it's just that they're not taught it, so they don't know. It's no one's fault in particular. Sorry, guys, it's a bit long, but the mentorship of young people, it's just so important, because the one thing they do is that they could be is helping to build people up. And there's so many people that come out of there and they don't. And the thing is that it's a bit of a disservice really to the people that go in there wanting to give so much of their energy to something, not knowing what else they can do. And for people that's supposed to be mature and supposed to be, whether they're supervisory, whether they're in control, in charge, bosses, whatever you want to call them, not only should they should, but without the word should, it's a responsibility and a duty for those people to understand the requirements of the people that they're leading and the people that they have under their command. And it is in that job under your command. It's not like it's my friend. It's under your command, yeah? Because if you don't turn up to work, you get put in jail, or you fucking get charged, or you lose some pay, or whatever it is. Because especially if someone doesn't like you, for sure they make your life hell. Because, you're under command. It's not like, my boss or whatever. Yeah, you're under the command of Bozo B, XYZ, whoever the man is, yeah? And or woman in this case. And it's just, whatever case. And it's the responsibility, it's their duty to and they even say that in there. They even say that they have a duty of care for people, a certain duty of care, especially a certain duty of care for people under 18. They go, oh, well, you can't go and drink blah, 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 blah when you're 17 and you join. Okay, fair enough. But for everyone, they have a duty of care, and that duty of care is to make sure that everyone, if you're not in a war already, at peacetime, well, okay, you should be okay, in all aspects. And and it's just, anyway. So yeah, they should definitely. They've got a duty of care to do that, and they don't fulfil that. To my knowledge and my experience, they don't fulfil that role as they should be doing, which is why so many people come out of there disheartened and unconfident in themselves. And so many people. That's why now there's so many claims for PTSD, so much money going out to people, because now all of a sudden the government think, oh fuck, we've got a problem. Shit, how do we do? I better throw money at it, which is a typical government reaction. But I'm saying from being there that the reason for this is a lack of care. Yeah, it's a lack of care, 100% a lack of care and education. But I think for some of the things, it's not even education. It's a lack of. This is really important. This is a really important thing I've got to say. This is super important because a lot of people suffering because of this. And a lot of the reason why I've gone down the healing journey and choose to help people now is because of this particular experience that I've had and that other friends have had with the organisation, the Defence Force. And so many people commit suicide, so many people that don't make it because they don't get the recognition, they don't get the care that's required, fast enough. And it's it seems like a benign thing. Someone goes and has a job. Right? It happens to be the Defence Force, but someone goes and joins a job. People think, it's just a job. Everyone's like, it's just a job. Yeah, but there's something about that job, something about the training, something about the way that people are treated in there, which fundamentally affects people in a mental manner. Because if you have the power over someone to say, you arrived late, Ben, Lisa, you arrived late today, okay, I'm going to take money from you, or you stay at work, or I put you in jail, something like this, okay? This is not working at McDonald's. You can't just walk away and go, hey, buddy, chill out, see you later. I'm sick today. Doesn't work, yeah? In 5 years, never once ring up, go, oh, I'm sick. Doesn't happen. So you give and you give and you give, yeah? So the thing is that these people are coming out, in effect, damaged because the care is not taken. And what that care is just not looking after people, man, in a appropriate way, and because you're in charge of people, you have the responsibility of making or breaking someone. And people have to understand that in a place like that, it makes or breaks certain people. If you go in there as an adult, for sure, no problem. But under 25, for sure, problem. Under 27, for sure, problem. And I just have to point that out because I think a lot of people, it's such an important issue and people don't understand what it is, that it's this word PTSD, or there's this, subject, the military people and the mental problems and blah, blah, but a lot of people don't understand. So I just felt it's so important to be able to use that opportunity to be able to just hopefully clearly explain more clearly what's actually going on there and what it is. I hope it made sense. Waffling on a bit, but, yeah.
Thank you very much. So about the healing, I would like to learn more about this. So what are you doing there exactly?
Yeah, what are you doing now?
Yeah, what am I doing now? Nothing, just talking to you guys, relaxing, having a couple of margaritas. That's the sort of healing I do these days, just chill out. No, I'm kidding. Just being stupid. So I've done a few things in the past to lead up to it. But now all the things that I've sort of learnt over the years, what now I've started doing is integrated all the things that I've learnt and all the experiences that I've had during the learning any bits and pieces of healing or healing methods or modalities or techniques or whatever you want to call it. And it's been amazing and wonderful. And now I've come to the point where I start doing what it is that I do in my sort of living normal life, which is helping people, one-on-one coaching. And that's sort of, in the last few months, I've asked myself, what is it that can I be doing that will be in alignment, like in the same path as what I do normally, so that I'm not working here and then having a holiday from my life, my work life. I'm working and loving my work. What is that I can really be doing? Because healing's great, but obviously you have to make enough money to help yourself. And a lot of the time you're helping people, you're just helping people, and it's not necessarily a paid session or a paid thing. It's not like a psychiatrist. People don't come to my office. I'm not set up like a business like that because I've been still always learning and understanding. And, but yeah, so lately what I've been doing is currently what I'm doing is just helping people one-on-one with my building skills. The healing might manifest in a way like I helped my friend build a soundproof ceiling for his music studio, or to build his music studio at home. So that gives him freedom at his home. And it's a self-confidence building because he's learning building alongside with me, and we're helping each other. So there's this camaraderie. So doing many things at once for that particular project. And in more clarity to answer your question, the healing that I do with people comes in so many different forms. It's not like there's a lot of tools that I have, like different questions to make people aware of, especially if they have anxiety or different emotions come up, to separate them from the emotion, like who does it belong to? And initially, because the truth is always light, it's a light energy. So you can always tell, if it's a lie or it's not true for me, it feels heavy. And even explaining this to people and getting people to self-guide again, to understand that they do have an emotional guidance system, and that they can guide themselves. And once they got that, all of a sudden they're like, hey, I'm free in a way, because all of a sudden I don't just have these feelings and don't know what to do with them. I don't have these emotions and don't know what to do with them. So sharing those tools with someone alongside one-on-one coaching, like I helped my friend build his ceiling, and then a friend of ours' house, we actually renovated the back room of their house. And it's nice to be able to help people and teach people building skills physically, but then also help them in their life as it comes up. And everyone needs a certain amount of help in different areas. It's not all the same. And I think that's why I sort of give those cross sections of experiences. And same thing with a friend. He just recently left to Brisbane, and just helping him with making his home a home. Okay, I'll move your fridge for you. Okay, I'll give you my washing machine because we've got an extra one, which happened to be because our places come fully furnished. And my partner had a washing machine, and then she had hers that she brought to the unit because she lives next door. And then I had mine, so I gave him mine washing machine, helping him get set up. But then little things like that, making people at home in their home and finding furniture and stuff for them, all this small stuff. But then if they have an issue to deal with and they need someone to talk to, okay, cool, let's talk about it. Well, what perspective on that thing? Okay, cool. And then they have a clear perspective, like, cool, I have an option, or don't worry about that, or whatever it is that for them, they can be clearer and more at ease with the things they're dealing with. But it's so many different ways, like just talking to someone about whatever's going on in their life if they need someone to talk to, and then helping them with stuff like, getting their flat set up or getting their house set up. Sometimes I do energetic treatments as well, where I have learned different healing methods in the past, which are just purely energetic, like reconnective healing. That's something where you just basically just wave your hands around. But because I've been attuned to a certain energy, I'm sort of able to activate that within my hands. And not only in your hands, but in your whole field or the whole room, or when you're with someone, and be able to give an energetic session to them. So sometimes I do that. Sometimes I also do access bars, which is, I think, 23 points on the head, which when you lightly touch them, it gets rid of, allows the release of limited storage points, or it allows the release of stored emotions, thoughts, feelings, and emotions that are stored within ourselves. And that's massive, because when someone feels lighter when they get off the table, when they've had, regardless of which treatment, whether it's the bars, the 23 points on the head, whether it's energetic, or sometimes just, being in meditation and being able to share that space with someone of calmness, of silence with someone, and having them feel like they can breathe again, And sometimes also being able to witness for people, what's going on, because for a while I did online psychic work as well. And part of the healing work is that, you become aware that you're aware. I mean, so you start asking more questions. And anybody who asks a question and receives an energy in return we're all psychic to some degree. We all have instinct. We all have feelings. We all have emotions. So we all pick up stuff about stuff, awareness about things. It just depends. Some people are really good at seeing stuff. They can probably tell you, what card am I holding up? They can probably, tell you what your grandmother looked like. There's some people that are probably great at it. I'm not like that. But some things I can see. I can tell if someone's been hurt or been in a violent situation or had trauma or something. And it depends on who you're with as to how much you see or how much you feel. But sometimes it's just a small awareness about something, and just a small bit of kindness. Sometimes the healing is like, hey man, do you want to go and get a meal? Or can I, or bringing them dinner because they had chemotherapy and they're just too weak to make any food. And then doing those.
Yeah, I was once really sick in Cairns, and I remember that you came by with the car, like it was like really late in the night, and you said, because I was sick from my stomach, and you're like, oh, you are too dehydrated, you have to drink a lot of coconut water, and then you brought me like 3 or 4 liters of coconut water. You drink this all. I remember this back then. So. Yeah.
And did you feel healed afterwards?
I felt way better. Like we went up to the Daintree, and I fully recovered up there. Then
fantastic. And that's a prime example, because for me, with the healing work and working with people, the word joy, like just laughing now, it's so good to laugh, because there's all these. Yes, I do these things, but really, joy and laughter and making things lighter for everyone is awesome. Like. And it's just like that, bringing someone coconut water, like, oh, you need that. And you know what? Big difference. Just someone bringing you something. Sometimes that's enough, And so I just try to help where I can help. And I'm actually going to do a certificate in mental health shortly.
Oh, I'm doing a diploma next year as well here at the Gold Coast, in mental health. Yeah.
Man, that's fantastic because I spoke to the lady at the job agency and I said, look, I really want to help people, And it's got to be something that helps people. And she said, look, a cert for in mental health, I've seen other people do it and they've absolutely loved it. They've gone away and gone and worked in community and stuff and really helped people and loved it. And I thought, it felt so good. I used my psychic awareness. It felt really good. And so I thought, let's do it. And I'm really keen, so keen.
Great. That's awesome to hear. Yeah, I think, and you're the right person for this. And but I have one more question for our guests. Where can they find your music? Is there any place where they can go to listen to your stuff and what you're doing? And is there any place where they can find out more about you? Are you somewhere represented?
At the moment, the only place you can find the music is a collaboration I actually did with you, which is Heartspace on I think one of your albums.
I was Grow Up.
And that's on Spotify. So if you type in Heartspace Ben Fine, it'll come up. But Ben Fine is Fein.
That's right, yeah. And it says like featuring Stephen Alexander.
That's the one. That's a collaboration. Other than that, nothing at the moment. I do have a Facebook page called Calm Ocean Healing. So maybe if you search Calm Ocean Healing, it'll come up. I don't do a lot of posts on there or anything like that. I'm not very active on there. And I actually just got rid of Facebook from my phone, which is fantastic. So that's just stopped a whole heap of distraction going on.
Yeah, we also found out that Facebook, not so many people from our community are in Facebook. So we have a Discord server. We would recommend to join you as well and all the listeners who want to find out more about it. So if you join the Discord server and the listeners who want to find out more about you, you can have a chat there with them in the server. So this is also something to recommend.
To communicate, yeah.
That'd be fantastic. Yeah, Discord. I'll definitely download that and get hooked up with you guys on that. And because I'm definitely looking towards different platforms. So let's do that. Let's hook up on Discord and make the shift today away from Facebook. Because I don't even use Facebook anymore. It's gone. It's off my phone. Gone. I just got it's just got not bored with it, but just doesn't feel good. I don't like it. We'll leave it at that. As talking. Now Facebook has enough advertising from me so far. Goodbye, Facebook.
Yeah, thank you. That's good. Good to hear.
One of our last question is if you would have a school or something you can pass on to young people, students, what you learned in your life so far, what would it be? It could be subjects or just a tool or something you want to pass on.
That's a really good question. Really, just give me a couple of seconds to just think about that. That's awesome. That's a really good question. I think like if there was is it just one thing?
No, it's whatever you think of. I
think first probably the most important thing I'd try to help anybody with, and especially young people. And when I had the boat with my father, and we just because he bought a boat before he died, and I fixed that up. The sailing boat, and it was like the idea to use that as a platform for teaching people the skills that's required to fix up a boat and sail and navigation, all this sort of stuff. I thought, wow, what an amazing thing. Wow. I love this, the idea of teaching people skills. If there's one thing I could say to someone, especially like a younger version of myself, young kids, people growing up, 100%, I would say, number one, you've got to believe in yourself. You have to find some way to believe in yourself and trust what you feel is good that you want to do it. And you have to believe in yourself. Find some way to just, some method, something, just to keep checking in with yourself, just to do what really feels good to you and be true to yourself. Because it's so easy to be fooled. It's so easy to be taken advantage of by people who think they're a little bit smarter than you, a little bit older, a little bit, they learn a few more tricks. This, like, just believe in yourself, know what feels good. If stuff doesn't feel good, don't do it. You don't like the job? Fuck, don't do it. Find a different job. Ask yourself a question. Always be willing to ask yourself a question and check in with yourself. Believe in yourself and always ask yourself, is this good for me? Is this what I want to be doing? Should I be doing this? Is this for me? Like, just always be willing to question everything. Question it. If you want to buy a guitar, you don't have to get the first one. I mean, sure, if you feel it, like, yeah, okay, for sure, but guitar, job, relationship, doesn't matter. Always be willing to ask questions. Just, if it feels right. If it doesn't feel right, just acknowledge it. Know that there's, like, always another option. There's always another way. There's always another possibility. There's not just one way of living, not just the one thing or the one job or the one instrument or the one type of music or the one clothes you want to wear. It doesn't matter. There's always another option. Don't get stuck. Always ask questions and, trust yourself. Trust your heart. Trust the way that you feel about something. If it doesn't feel good, you don't have to do it. If it doesn't, and not all of life is going to feel good. It doesn't have to be wonderful. Some things are hard. Some things are a little bit challenging. But in that challenge, you'll know, do I need to attempt this challenge? Do I need to go through this? Or is this coming from a space of, seeking approval from outside, which is, one of the main things that I think are real shortfalls as we grow up, especially for young males, is in groups and things and are in the world, there's this, everyone's searching for approval from something outside themselves. So I think that's the biggest thing is just, as my dad always said, keep your own counsel. Keep your own thoughts in your heart and think about what you want to do, feel what you want to do, be true to yourself. You don't have to do something because somebody says or whatever. Be an individual thinker. And do what really makes you come alive. You have to do this. The one thing, you have to do in life is that do what makes you come alive. Do what you love. Do what makes you feel like, wow, I love living. Yes, that. And if you don't find it, that's okay. Just keep asking and find it. But don't settle for second best. Don't settle for, like, people will very quickly put you down. Especially in Australia, the tall poppy syndrome. So many stories from popular bands from the past, from all walks of life of people who will talk about this tall poppy syndrome, especially in Australia. In Europe, I think, way different. I've traveled briefly to Europe and I can 100% say that people are so different. I'm really talking about Australia when I talk about that. It's like, from my own personal experience, because I grew up here, is that people are very easy to put people down if you're doing better than them. And watch out for the people that think they're a little bit smarter, because there's always somebody out there who think they're a little bit smarter. They want to take advantage of you. They want to, come here, produce my music here, or come here, do this, or just go and do that job because it's easy and it's a shit job. Just do that. Yeah, you don't want to do that. Oh, I don't want to go for that job. That's too arty-farty, or that's too complicated, or no, you don't want to do that, mate. That's for faggots. You don't want to do that. Whatever it is, it's ridiculous. Don't listen to people. And stay around people that give a shit about you. Stay around people that care. This is the thing. This is probably the how many rules we got so far? Caring and kindness, man. Caring and kindness. Being around people that
trust in yourself,
care and are kind. Trust in yourself. Be around people that are caring and kind.
Great, man.
Be around people that, 100%. Caring and kindness is the biggest thing. Yeah. Oh my God, being around people that actually give a shit about you, about themselves, that actually say, "Hey man, how you doing? Hey man, you want to go out for a coffee?" They're not away with their ego, away with their thoughts. They're present with you, and they're like, "Hey man, how are you?" Caring and kindness, being around people that actually give a shit.
Thank you for these wise words.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I've only learned from experience of fucking things up a lot, so I hope it comes in handy.
So thank you very much for your time. We wrap this up for now. And if there are any final words from your side, there's now the time for it. And I would also have, with your final words, I would kindly ask you to give us, if it's possible, a small sample of Heart Space, and maybe tell us a little bit why it's called Heart Space.
Sure, that's awesome. Yeah, it's called Heart Space because at the time that I wrote the song, I was actually living up on a farm called Heart Space, and that was up in the Daintree in far north Queensland. And a couple of friends of mine, Mitzi and Clint, had started this little farm stay, organic farm stay and wellness centre called Heart Space Organic Farm. And people would come through and travellers would come through, and we teach people how to grow vegetables and maybe teach them some healing work and medicine-free pain relief, which I used to do a lot at that time. And we'd all get together and sit by the fire and eat together every day and just work together. And it was awesome because everyone had that huge amount of caring and kindness, for one another. And I think everyone that came there was all grateful to be there and grateful to share together, to share from where we'd come from. And it was a real melting pot and a real meeting place. And I think, it was a real special time for those 5 or so years. And so that's where the song Heart Space comes from. And actually there was a drummer there who came, and his name was, I forget, but he was a German guy as well. And he came up with the word Heart Space Face to Face one night at a jam. So that's where Heart Space Face to Face comes from, a German drummer that came to Heart Space Fun. So I can't take credit for that particular line. But yeah, that's where the song comes from.
Can you give us a brief sample? Have you guitar around it?
Sure, I do. I'll just have to go and get it.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you for listening to this inspiring interview with Steven. We hope you enjoyed it.
All the information and show notes about this podcast episode you will find on our website www.unpopularpeople.com. There we have also the link to our Discord server.
And we finish this episode with this amazing sample from Heart Space with Steven.
Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you and goodbye.
Emil, that's the German guy's name. Emil. So I have to give him credit for that because if he ever listens to it. So Emil, giving credit to Emil, the German drummer that came to Heart Space Organic Farm for the line Heart Space Face to Face. God, I hope what I said makes any sense. Jesus Christ. I know sometimes it's a bit long, sometimes what I talk about or something, but I just use the computer. Okay. Digging on my love, yeah. face to face. Digging on my love, digging on your love, yeah. Digging on your love, yeah. Digging on your love, digging on my love, digging on my love, yeah. Digging on our love, digging on our love, digging on our love. Hearts beat face to face.